I mean, you guys have kind of already alluded to it slightly, and I know that when Mitch DM'd me about it, he kind of gave me a bit of a heads up about the interesting story of you guys getting kind of together in the first place around him scoring the film. So like, can you just kind of start with that? Like, tell me how this beautiful relationship came to be.
Sure. The movie had its world premiere at Fright Fest Glasgow, and Mitch is a Fright Fester and a Glaswegian, so and so he was there and dug it. I do like the story you told. I was like, this does like, oh, we'll see how this goes. I feel like that's a good way to go in. But no, he saw it, he liked it, and he messaged me on Twitter to ask if I would want to be on the podcast. Mm-hmm. And I had actually never really been outside the States before. I'd gotten my passport in order to go to Glasgow, and then decided I'm not going to waste a free trip to Europe. So I went down to London for a week, and I happened to be going back to Glasgow for one night, just because they had gotten my tickets. So I was flying into and out of. Mm-hmm. And so when he messaged and asked if I wanted to be on, I said, actually, like, yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm in Glasgow for one night. Let's do that. And so when I got back up to Glasgow, I met up with a friend for a drink, and then he and Andy came and picked me up in the pouring rain, and we drove to Andy's place and talked about Gremlins 2 for so long. And that's a pretty good way to become my friend, is to want to talk about Gremlins 2. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we just kind of kept talking out of that, and there wasn't really an eye towards like collaboration. It was more just like, hey, I like this person, and we would talk about what we were working on, and he sent me a piece of music that I just loved, and I shared it with McLeod. And McLeod said, oh, it's a shame we can't ask him to score, do some score for the movie. I'm like, why can't we ask him that? Like, he can say no. And so, yeah, we messaged, I messaged him, I messaged Mitch and asked him, and he very kindly was enthusiastic about doing so. And yeah, it kind of from there, now we're stuck with each other.
Yeah. I think that it's funny looking back that that was in March 2020, and you are the last guest that we've had in person on the podcast since then.
Yeah, I was just about to ask about timings, like that beautiful kind of spontaneity of that story, which now it would be like, firstly, you wouldn't be able to travel here in the first place. Secondly, right, even if you were randomly in a city, it's so much more difficult to just go,
so close,
pick you up, come round to ours,
Yeah,
we were like my shots. I'm so close to being able to go back.
We were like, I think we were like 10 days out from certainly the UK kind of shutting down at that time. But yeah, no, it was cool. Also, I mean, like, you could have spent your last night in the UK however you wanted. So like, I kind of assumed that we would do it after you got home. So doing it in person was cool, and also just like not something that we thought was going to happen. So that was fun. But yeah,
it's been. Go ahead.
No, I think the piece of music that I sent you was something that I'd been doing or that I'd done for Black Mass, which had just played Fright Fest Glasgow as well. But yeah, you're right. I mean, like, when we started talking, it wasn't really with any designs on necessarily doing anything. It was just kind of like pinballing ideas around and talking about what we had going on. So it was it was really nice. It was really exciting to guest.
And so, Adam, tell me a little bit about, because if the film had already premiered at Fright Fest Glasgow, sorry Mitch, you'll have to excuse my extremely English accent. Glasgow.
You're fine.
If it had already premiered, like, what was the kind of situation with the score at that point? Were you already planning to kind of refresh it after that premiere, or was it just kind of hooking up with Mitch that like made that happen? Like, what's the whole process there?
We had been talking about adding some score, and we had been talking about finding someone, because Margaret Darling, who was kind of the first composer and did half the score, this was her last, she was a musician for a long time, but she had kind of retired, and this was her last big hurrah in the music world. And we had kind of hit a point of like, okay, I think we're as far along as we can get here, which is not a judgment statement on her, but more like part of making this and part of like making your first movie is you're kind of constantly learning what you don't know, and like you're constantly learning a new language. And so like the language as I knew it had taken us as far as we could go.
Sure.
You know, now, and I mean, so much comes out of timing, but yeah, so we had already been talking about that. And one interesting thing about a festival run, even with a feature, is that just because it screens doesn't mean that it's going to stay that way. I mean, Synchronic, when they played Fright Fest Glasgow, had just recut the movie. Like, it was a significant recut that changed, I think, the ending and maybe the last third. But yeah, you're always just kind of like, let's see how people react. And it does. It gives you a sense of like, okay, this is really working. Let's tighten this up. Let's, you know, this could be better. There was one, we don't need to like get to songs just yet, but there was one needle drop in the movie that I wasn't 100% on. And somebody mentioned it in a review, and I was like,
"Oh,
that's
no way!
That's all I need. Like, we're gonna find something." And so, and I mean, we tinkered. I mean, McLeod and I both are just tinkerers, and we tinkered up until the point where, when the movie hit Arrow on February 1, like no one had seen that cut before it went up, just because we'd made so many changes up until the very last second. And they're not all big changes, but yeah, you just keep working it until it's done, and often it's done when it's out.
Yeah.
I'm included in that because when a Ghostface dropped an Arrow player, I think it took me until maybe the Tuesday or Wednesday that week before I was like, right, I have watched this as like unfinished cuts on my laptop enough times. I've watched it at festivals, but I'm just gonna watch it as a film that I am watching at home for the first time. And there was a couple of things like there's kind of a jump scare in it that I like engineered this piece of kind of like death metal for just like a couple of seconds of, which is in there. But
I made a note of this. I made a note of the death metal moment.
Right,
it was extremely effective.
I wish McLeod was here for this now.
but I didn't. I had done that and sent it, and I think that we talked about doing something with it. But so it was kind of like a jump scare on two levels for me, because it was a jump scare, but also it was like, oh, it's in there, nice, cool. So yeah, no, I like yeah, I was amongst the fresh eyes on it, the finished cut, I guess.
I love it. That's so fun. That's so funny about that bit. Like I've just looked back at my notes. I've just put lol heavy metal moment with Rosie. It was really strong. Big fan.
It's so much fun to like, you know, we're none of us are very self-serious people. So especially like McLeod and I working on this or working on this for so long, you know, it was always just like anytime we could have fun with something, it was kind of a priority to do so. And I remember like that moment specifically, Mike was really excited because it gave him a chance to do some Sam Raimi camera shit. And so that's like, he always says like that's his Sam Raimi moment of like going off kilter and like being kind of crazy with the focus. And it's so nice that like so many people just found that one spot to put a lot of their insanity into. Where it's like, you know what would be perfect here? Death metal. Like, sure, okay.
Death metal, wonky cameras. Let's just throw it all in.
I genuinely I don't have a means. I've recently moved and I don't have a means for playing live guitar in my flat, so it's all just completely like digitally composited, including the growls were royalty-free animal sounds that I found.
Are there hyenas in there? I'm sure I heard hyenas.
I think there maybe was. There was something, certainly.
So, Mitch, like, you know, how do you go from watching a film that you dig at a film festival to, you know, a few conversations down the line being like, oh, okay, I'm now scoring this? Like, how did you kind of... Is that an unusual way to approach it? And like, how did you kind of approach it, like creatively?
I've only done, I've done 3 features and 2 of them were rescores. So I'm used to that. In as much as you can be used to something when you've worked on 3 things. But
Sure.
but yeah, like it's so I guess that coming in and knowing that there was kind of like already some stuff there that I was gonna have to try and kind of like divorce myself from was fine. I basically spent a lot of time watching, I'd seen the kind of premiere cut a couple of times, obviously with the original score, but there was one that had kind of the one that I was working with had none.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I was like, right, I am just going to fill every waking spot with music, and you can pick the bones out of it and use what you think is good, basically. Or kind of like, I think that I don't know. I think you might remember that. I think that like this entire after we kind of like spoken about me doing it. I sent you in McLeod like 2 emails that were like 3,000 words each or something about where I thought things could go.
I
and then at the end
remember.
Of what? Yeah,
I vaguely remember.
It's okay if you've kind of like repressed it or expunged it. Yeah, like so. Yeah, it was like I kind of try to treat it as much as like working on something kind of completely fresh, but it's difficult to when you've already seen something and you already know that it's great. I'm very, very like proud of the stuff of mine that's in there, but I think that when you kind of take the reins on something that is already great, then there is this kind of like overhanging fear that you will make it slightly worse.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, no, I thought like it was a really fun process, to be honest, and like but yeah, well, I think that once I kind of managed to create a little bit of space between what was there and what I was doing, I think that I kind of managed to treat it like anything else.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Adam, when you get a 3,000 word long email from your new composer, and you've got all of this material to work with where all of that space is filled with music and it's like your job to kind of choose it, like how do you separate, I guess, the decisions that you'd made in the festival edit about where to have music, what kind of score to have in which places and stuff? How do you separate that from your new music process? Like, can you, or are you being very much informed by what happened before? Like, how does that work for you?
Yeah, I don't think you separated it at all, or at least I didn't. One of the we worked on this movie for 5 years. Principal photography was 12 days in August 2016.
Wow.
And then we did 4 days of pickups in April 2017 and 3 or 4 days of pickups in February 2018. And like one of the trickiest parts of the entire process was just like, you got to keep making the same movie. Especially I'm like learning so much constantly through the process. It would be very easy to start like, oh, I want to apply, this lesson to, this, but that's when the movie would start changing.
Yeah.
And one thing that it's funny, McLeod has like told me like, it's fine to be self-deprecating, but please stop talking about the movie like we made it on accident. So, one of like the key decisions I made early on was that because we didn't have a lot of money, our kind of North Star would be simplicity. Let's never make our lack of money an excuse for lack of quality. If we can't afford bells and whistles, let's not buy bells and whistles. And so when it starts making changes, you just keep following the same North Star. You keep telling the same story. You just find better ways. You dig into that story and you kind of plummet and see where it can be better. And there's a great deal of humility where you have to admit that like the movie is the boss, you're not the boss of the movie. So the movie will tell you what it needs and you have to kind of play the ball with it and admit like, okay, the idea that I had there doesn't work. That's fine. Let's find the next great idea. So and with me, like I wrote it so fast. And so it kind of started the writing process of like, okay, what's interesting? What's the most interesting thing I could do in this scene? What's the most interesting thing this person can say? And that kind of continues where when Mitch is sending me 3,000 word emails I'm looking at what's interesting. And when he's sending me music to listen to, it's just kind of like, okay, like what am I sparking to? And kind of be okay not sparking to anything. It's entirely possible that you get sent 10 tracks and none of them hit for you.
Sure.
But kind of let it play. And it was such an intuitive process that it, I always say what's interesting, but like it is just that of like, it's going to feel right. It's going to feel of a piece if you're kind of always keeping it consistent. Yeah, I think that's what I did. I don't know.
That totally answers my question. That was really, it makes perfect sense. So you talked, like you kind of implied this thing around like the song choices. So were all of the songs that are in the film, were they pre-Mitch, or Mitch, did you add any of those in? Like how, so, okay, fine. So talk to me a little bit about the song choices, Adam.
Yeah, the songs were all pre-Mitch. There's one that was post, but that's because we were tinkering. So yeah, I'm like anyone else. Anyone who makes a movie, again, doesn't do it by accident. And you spend a lot of time thinking about what kind of movie you would make. I really love how music is used. So I know music will be a big part. I really like, transcendent endings. So I want to build to something that's transcendent. And so I always knew that music would be a big part. And I fortunately spent like my 20s going to live music. I have a lot of musician friends. So when this became real, a lot of them already knew that I wanted to make a movie. So this became like, hey, can I have a song for a movie? Yes, you can.
Nice.
And I mean, and they were all friends. The only person on the soundtrack I don't know is James Smith, who does Stubborn Love, which opens the movie. And that's because originally we had a much more traditionally horror soundscape at the start. And when we did a friends and family screening, we noticed that some people weren't sure if they were allowed to laugh.
Sure, that makes sense.
And when you make a comedy, you generally want people to know they can laugh. So we went back and started tinkering with the opening, and McLeod was like, what if we put a song there? And I had put every other song on the soundtrack. So I was like, yeah, if you got something, like, put more thumbprints on this thing, man. And so he put that song in and it worked perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the others, like Honey Honey, I've been friends with for 10 years now. And so when this became a viable project, I just emailed them like, they've been very fortunate that all of their albums have been on a label. So the only song they have that isn't owned by a label is Punk Kid. So I just emailed like, hey, can I have Punk Kid? That's the one I can afford.
It's such a tune as well. Like you're lucky that was the one.
Yeah.
I think that's true in general though. Like it's incredible that like all of the songs in the film are from people that you happen to know, because one of the things that hit me on first watch was how striking all the music cues were. And like how effective and how kind of pitch perfect they all felt.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, that's one kind of thing when you're doing everything, is that it is going to feel of a piece, because it's all kind of, it's all kind of coming from my heart. And especially once that's kind of set as the template, even bringing in someone else's music, it's going to feel consistent. So it's all going to kind of feel like it comes from the same place, even though, like, one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that you aren't always going to know why you're doing the right thing. Like you're always going to know why something is right. There were so many things on this movie that like just worked out. And this is specifically why McLeod's like, you made decisions. There was originally Yellow Cotton Dress was not the song we had while he was working, and then because he didn't originally sing a song in the movie. Originally, the idea was that he was kind of making up songs as he went about his day, and that's what she was responding to.
Mm-hmm.
But we shot that, and it just didn't work. That people didn't get that that's what was happening. So we decided, and I'd had a song that I wanted to use, and I just hadn't gotten clearance, but it was a friend. I was sure he would eventually send us, an email that cleared it, and he just never did. and when we were doing the pickups, and we finally hit upon like, oh, okay, this is what this moment needs. We need you actually singing a song and her connecting with that. Then it became, oh, this is no longer plug and play. Like the song, we need to have cleared the song.
Yeah.
And he still didn't respond. So I reached out to Mark Messerly of Wussy, and 20 minutes later had full clearance from the band to use the song. And so McLeod and I went to a pawn shop and bought a guitar so he could spend a few days learning it.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, does McLeod play? Like, usually,
Yes.
like he does. Okay, fine. So
Yeah,
he just needed to learn to play the song, not learn to play the guitar.
Right. No, he's self-taught, but yeah, he already played. So we weren't completely building from scratch, but yeah, he's like, it was funny too, because he was just like, you're gonna hate this song by the time I'm done, like just playing it over and over and over again. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, my favorite person's playing one of my favorite songs. This is amazing. Making movies is magic.
Do you hate it now, or is it okay? Is it still magic?
I love it.
Okay,
I love it so much.
Okay.
It makes me so happy to see people online talking about, like, you know, now Wussy is added to their playlist, and I love that the music has resonated so strongly.
Yeah, there's something about that song as well that okay, brace yourself, lads, because this is going to sound wanky, but there's something about it that in a way it feels almost like a microcosm of the movie, because you've got this like very sweet sounding little song, and then all of a sudden it like drops motherfucker, and then I feel like you kind of get that with the film as well. Like, it's this very sort of sweet, you know, little love story, and then at the end it like near tears your heart out. So there's just something like really beautifully kind of like synchronous about that, for it to be such a central piece of music, you know.
That's the first time that I've ever heard anyone refer to that ending as the motherfucker drop.
This interview is over.
Slams a laptop shut.
That's really sweet. That's really, I love that. It's so funny. Like, yeah, people took to it, and I don't even think I mean, I love the song, but I don't think I thought that people would take to it. And McLeod was the first one that was just, because he was learning it, and she's like, these lyrics are very appropriate. I'm like, oh, are they? Like, I'm sorry, I'm doing a million things right now. Like, you know, do you need attention, or are you good? Which is, again, like when you're making so many decisions, I always say I have like a prism in my chest, and like it just, the light hits the prism, and I know what color I'm looking for. So much of it, like so many of days, I'm just like, do you need a conversation, or can I just tell you something? You know, and like, I'm fine either way, but like, just tell me how much of me you need right now.
Sure.
Yeah, just tell me which ballpark we're in.
Yeah. I always think about The Aviator, when he's like, he has that visual device where he's like flipping through things so he can go from like working on a plane to working on a movie to doing something else. It's like, yeah, that's basically what it's like. Or you're just like,
you're not peeing in jam jars, Adam, are you?
Not anymore.
Okay, great.
Not that you can see.
They're well hidden, like under the desk.
I've grown too accustomed to the scent now. I need to be reminded of my humanity, so I always keep a jar of my own piss nearby.
It's how you stay humble.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
you're not gonna get that shit on any other label but Arrow. Come on.
Is that on the commentary?
I like the idea of you taking that with you everywhere you travel to.
TSA is not happy with me, but it's my emotional support jar.
Keeps me grounded.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, I had a very sort of, you know, serious question to ask, but now it feels
sorry
weird.
To literally piss on your serious question.
No. Amazing. My serious question was going to be, so you've got obviously Jack and Muriel kind of very central to the story. So Mitch, like, what was it about their individual characters that you kind of wanted to like communicate or express through the music. Did you kind of latch on to like one or two kind of like key characteristics of them?
I think that, I guess something that's kind of interesting about certainly the stuff that that I was working on for it was that we settled on, I'd written a bunch of stuff for like the first 20, 25 minutes of the film that we didn't end up using because we'd had this, like, and none of it was particularly kind of like focus stealing or melodic or anything. It was all kind of quite ambient, but like the three of us went back and forth on what we were doing with the first act for quite a while. And ultimately, we kind of made the decision that we would have no score until Muriel arrived.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that I didn't really think too much about writing for them separately because I didn't really have to do that.
Sure.
Or at least like once we kind of thinned the idea down and kind of distilled it down to the fact that this, like, the score was going to enter after they started interacting with each other. That's kind of weird, actually. I'd actually never thought about that until you asked. But yeah, like it became quite a bit less about them as individual characters and much more about them as a pair.
I love that.
But I think that actually, like, I think that's probably a more important decision than I gave it credit for in the moment, because I think that like it kind of pulled together a lot of the kind of loose threads that were kind of kicking around.
I think that's going to be the title of my memoir. That was probably a more important decision than I gave it credit for in the moment. That's excellent.
Because when we said it, I was like, cool, that sounds good. And but at that point I was like, you know, when you're just kind of like looking at something very methodically and very mathematically, and you're like, and you're just kind of like, right, okay, that's fine. No music for the first 25 minutes. Where's the first bit that definitely needs something? And I think that it was only afterwards that I kind of stood outside it, and I was like, that actually kind of like brought so much laser focus to what I did after that, that I was like, oh God, that was actually a really definitive moment that I was just like, yeah, sure, fine. And then just got on with my day. But yeah, it was only afterwards that I noticed. But yeah, sorry, that was a long answer to a short question, but like,
it was a great answer.
But yeah,
well,
but like
also like Mitch had, I'm just gonna kind of give him some credit here for a second. Like so he came on, and then we were gonna play Fright Fest, and Fright Fest was bringing us back for what ended up being Fright Fest Digital,
which was the first time I saw the movie.
Yeah, excellent. And so he, was like, okay, well, we want to have this done. He was gonna be watching it with his friends, like. And so it was all about like getting it to a place there, which was weeks, like weeks to set the score. And then after that, we played Screamfest in Los Angeles, and they were an in-person event. So we had to get a DCP made, which costs some money. So it became like, we're not getting another one of these fucking things, like the score has to be done. And it was again like weeks to like finish it, and it had to be like done. There was no like, we're not gonna be coming back to this. And then like the Arrow stuff started happening. It was like, oh, okay, it's gonna have like this whole other life. But Mitch was constantly working from behind the eight ball. Like I was not fair to him. People should know I was a terrible collaborator.
That's not true. But see, the Screamfest thing, Adam, you've maybe heard me tell this story now, and you might remember a little bit about it at the time. But like, yeah, it was pretty time sensitive getting everything kind of over the line for Screamfest. But like a week and a half or so before that happened, my laptop died. My laptop died irrecoverably. It was dead. So this was also at a time where the two people that I was living with at the time, my friends Dan and Tara, had gone to America for a family funeral and had come home and had to lock down for 2 weeks. So I still had to go to work. So as to let that kind of run as it should, I was staying on my friend's sofa bed for 2 weeks. This was the point when the laptop died. My friend Panda pulled off an incredible salvage mission on the actual kind of like on everything that was there, because I had stuff backed up. I just didn't have access to it.
Right.
Which completely negates the point of having a fucking
Backup,
backup. But Panda pulled off this thing basically where I then used their iPad, which my keyboard MIDI controller thing wouldn't connect to. So while I was finishing the remainder of it, I was doing it by learning to map notes electronically, which I'd never done before in my life. And I finished it. And the day that I finished the score, I remember that I was still I was still physically going into work at the time. So I got up at 4:30 in the morning, did it for 2 hours, had a shower, went to work, came home from work, recorded an episode of the podcast, recorded a Patreon episode of the podcast, edited that, and then worked on it again until 4 in the morning and sent everything back. And at that point it was done, but I'd been up for 24 hours. And I remember that I went through to Panda's living room, got myself a beer from the fridge, just sat down, stared at the wall and drank it. And I was like, I kind of felt like this would be more of an occasion.
Yep. Oh God, yeah.
And actually, I told that story to John McPhail that directed Anna and the Apocalypse. He's a pal of mine, and I told him about it, and he was like, "You have to make those things occasions because nobody will do it for you."
Yeah.
And I was like, I was like, in fairness, I couldn't have made I couldn't have made an occasion of it in that moment if I wanted to. I was fit to fucking collapse. But yeah.
Biggest celebration would just be to get a good night's sleep.
Yeah, which I didn't, because I then slept for 2 hours and then went to work again the next day because this was on a Tuesday evening. So it could not have been more dramatic at the end, but it was also just really not good for my heart.
It's an interesting thing about directing is Mitch and I would have a conversation as friends of just oh man, I totally get it. I hate, when I'm working on something and I'm putting all this pressure on myself, and then the other that it starts compounding, and so I'm being very patient and no, I get, and now you have all this stuff to do, trust me, I've had so many issues. But then there's the director part of the brain was but you're gonna get it done on time, right? No. I'm not telling you not to go without sleep. I'm just empathizing with I too go without sleep.
I'm not telling you to go without sleep. I just need you to account for every minute you're awake. Yes, the other side of that coin was when we were having those conversations, I was kind of oh yeah, there's this, and it's not this though, this is fine.
Oh God.
It's these other assholes. This is great. It's every other demand on my time that's the problem.
Sure. How many people are you telling that to in one day?
Yeah, Mitch, how many of us are there? I thought what we had was special.
I actually that was just an incredibly dramatic ending to what was otherwise a very harmonious experience. I think that had I been able to just do the end of it under the circumstances I'd done the rest of it would have been fine. But yeah, no, it was a very good, very positive experience for me.
I mean, I think I've just learned something, we don't know each other super well, Mitch, but I think I've just learned something very important about a difference between you and me, because there's no way that I would still be recording my podcast and Patreon episodes and stuff if I had that hanging over me. I would be onto my podcast partner, okay, well, we're just going to have to postpone this, people will understand. And you are oh yeah, no, I didn't get any sleep, and I went to work and I came home and I recorded this stuff, and then I also did the Patreon thing, and then I finished the score for that feature film I'm working on.
See, this is where Mitch and I really connect, is that both of us feel a profound sense of obligation to others, and how can I accommodate you, how can I don't worry about me, don't worry about my energy, how are you doing?
What I remember as well is that the Patreon episode that we recorded was about fucking Verotica as well. And I remember that
the world's most hated film.
Yeah, and as I was kind of editing this 25 minutes of audio of me and Andy talking about this disaster that Glenn Danzig made, I was what a strange sequence of decisions that brought me to this moment.
Oh my God, that is so perfect in such a messed up way.
Yeah, I think that it is. Yeah, but yeah, no, it was like I'm talking about, like, that was basically just like a very kind of like stressful 8 hours. The rest of it was fairly plain sailing.
But it's also just like what you said about like I thought this would feel different. Is that has been my experience as well.
Okay.
Where like you finish a cut, you're just like, where's my parade? I thought I got a parade. And then when we actually, like when we screened at Screamfest, we ended up winning a few awards. And we had won some awards out of Fright Fest, but that was virtual. And so it was just like, I just woke up and my phone had blown up with notifications. But this, we actually got to be there. And so it's so very strange to have like worked your entire life to make something and then you make it and you feel like you have a place in the world and then the world tells you to go home. And like, so we have this awards night where like McLeod wins Best Actor, we won Best Picture, I won Best Director, and like we can't hug, which is like what McLeod and I do, and then we can't even fucking hang out. Like it was just like, cool, we won. I guess time to go back to the Airbnb.
Yeah.
And so I was just like sitting on a couch drinking a beer in like my, you know, in a t-shirt and shorts, just like, I guess this is what it feels like this year. Like, so I really hope the next one's good because I would like to have the social aspect of being a filmmaker at some point.
Sure. Yeah. You want the like the parade and the hugs and you know the at least a high five or two.
You have to make it count for yourself, and you have to like just let it like whatever, however it ends up playing. You just have to be like, okay, I guess that's fine.
Yeah, this is what this is.
Yeah.
Like, because I've kind of got this kind of like just because I've been going there for so long, I have got this bucket list thing about going to Fright Fest London with a film that I've worked on, and all things being equal, we would have done that this year. And I'm like, I'm still counting it, but also I want to do it in person.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Next one. Speaking of which, have you got any plans to work together in future?
Adam, you better take this one.
Oh, that sounds like you have like actual plans.
What?
No. Like, well, yes, we're going to. I think we both want to.
Great.
Definitely. Yeah, I want to.
Yeah. This was great. I actually, I think I've told Mitch this, but like, I was really hoping to find like a composer. Like that's like the way like Aronofsky and Clint Mansell work together. Like I was really wanting, I was like hoping that I would find somebody that like musically keyed in. So I know that we really want to work together again. I'm trying to finish the script that will probably be the next movie because there's actual interest in it, which is weird. It's very strange to like people actually give a shit about something you're writing.
That's kind of like your parade. That's sort of like
Which again, like they're all through McLeod. Like I think two of them I know, but so it's just this like academically people are excited. Like, all right, like, well, I guess in a few months that'll feel like a thing.
Yeah, sure. I'll get used to that now.
So, but yeah, I know we both want to. So I'm sure it will happen at some point.
Yeah.
And is that kind of another like genre? Is that what you do, Adam? Like, is it genre that you're kind of anchored to?
I like genre. I don't like the idea of being anchored to anything, but that's just personal issues with things. You know, I don't like being defined by any one thing. So, but yeah, like this next thing is it is a time travel road movie with a little bit of disaster movie sprinkled in. Or as I said the other day when I was being especially pretentious, an absurdist sci-fi romance.
Okay.
I have this really bad habit of writing is so much work and it's so much easier to not write than to write that I have a lot of ideas, but I don't really start working on them until I think they don't work because then I have a puzzle to solve. And generally they don't work just means I haven't seen them work.
Sure.
Because if I have an idea that's like something that already exists, then I'm just gonna pop some popcorn and fucking watch that movie on my couch. That's way easier. So yeah, it's a little frustrating. but I do like. I was actually just out with my friend on Friday, and she was saying that like she likes to write like chamber dramas and living room, you know. And I was like, yeah, like nobody's gonna come to me for the Remains of the Day. Like I'm just not your writer for that. But like she would love it. I was like, but if you want Remains of the Day to be a monster movie, I can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I really love the operatic element of genre. You know, I love how silly it is, but how much it matters.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's sci-fi, then I guess Mitch, you could maybe come in with some of your sad robots.
Yeah.
Oh, let's talk about Sad Robot.
Look what I did. Look what I did.
So,
you're welcome.
Yes. So when we met, when we're like first talking about collaborating and we're talking about a Ghost Waits and what it needs, we were trying to come up with like a tone. And so we're just sending each other like tons of shit. And we start, I mean, I don't know that we actually said this, but if you think about like Within by Daft Punk, like that's kind of the thing we were sending each other. And so I think it was Mitch that was it. No, God. Well, Mitch, you probably know a story even better than I do.
I think that when we were talking about the things that wouldn't work. And we're basically kind of like trying to kind of like come up with a 1-sentence summation for that. Like I basically just wanted to know which ballpark we were in so I could start writing stuff in a kind of like more kind of targeted way. And what we kind of settled on was like, right, okay, so we're thinking kind of like electronic, but not kind of like beep boop electronic, ambient, like, you know, kind of like synthy, textured, kind of understated. But it's like, so it's like we're going electronic, but melancholic. And then immediately Adam texted me saying the sad robot prays for rain. And I was like, yes, that's perfect. And I love the fact as well that it became such a part of the vernacular that McLeod was like, I think that we're sad roboting this too much.
Oh my God, it became a verb.
Which was often a legitimate criticism, because I think I probably took it a little too literally. But yeah, that was where the sad robots came from. And who knows? Yeah, the sad robots may return.
I love it.
We're always just a corner away. Sad robots are always on call.
Yeah, they're just ready. They've got nothing else going on.
That's why they're sad.
That's why they're sad.
Yeah. Like, what the hell else are they doing on a Tuesday?
Oh, it's Tuesday already? I hadn't even noticed.
Guys, it's Monday.
The Royal Tuesday, Becky.
Oh, sorry.
Becky, look, the last thing these robots need are to get any sadder, okay?
Time is a construct. Come on.
Just humor them, okay? It's been a day.
I also Mitch, I mean, Mitch doesn't get this as much as McLeod does, but I do feel bad for like anyone who collaborates with me because like I'm a very existentialist person. So you'll ask me what is probably a simple question and I'll just be like, well, the vagaries of chance in this world makes no sense. So who knows? Like, that's not helpful, Adam.
I just want to know what format you want the file in, Adam. Come on.
It's only Monday because we all agreed it's Monday. You know, it's Monday so that we can have a meeting. Like, who gives a shit?
Amazing. Guys, like, what else do you want me to know about the score of this film or about the music of this film? What is it that is important to know?
Mitch, you got anything?
That's
a good question.
It's a good question. I think that from a score angle, I guess, I think that it's interesting for me to have technically worked with someone that I've had zero contact with, and by that I mean Margaret, that did the original score. And I don't know. I think that like I'm always curious. Like, what one thing, like, you know, like because I'm a gigantic narcissist. Whenever anybody watches it, I ask them about what they thought of the score, but also I'm curious about whether or not they can identify what is and isn't the work of one person or the other.
Okay.
And I think that the fact that people generally can't is cool. I think that I think that I kind of like worked away on stuff on my own. And I think that the conversations that I had with, or one of the important parts of the conversations that I had with Adam McLeod were kind of about like maybe sanding down the corners of the stuff that I was doing in a way that kind of made it feel more at home with the stuff that was already there.
Sure.
Yeah. One thing that I do think is cool that I still kind of like get a kick out of when I hear it is that there is a piece on the score that was originally something of Margaret's that was kind of like this kind of like fairly stop-start and unusually time signatured thing. And we had a conversation about how to use it. And what we ended up doing was that I took that part and wrote something underneath it to tie all the parts together. And I have literally never done that before. Like I've never added something to somebody that like I've never added something to a piece of work, I guess, from like something I wasn't around for the writing of.
Mm-hmm.
And that felt really kind of, but I like the fact that it's kind of like somewhere in the middle and it kind of feels like this strange bridging moment between the two things that each of us were doing. And I like it a lot. And I think that that's fun.
Yeah, agreed.
It's, you know, like I get asked a lot now, like, you know, what advice do you have for aspiring filmmakers, which makes it feels really weird to not be called one.
Aspiring filmmaker. Yeah.
You know, like I just did a friend of mine just reached out to like, hey, can I pick your brain about directing stuff? And I was like, I know where you work. You have access to real filmmakers. And she was like, right, that's why I'm asking you. I'm like, oh, that's really nice. But so like the thing that I think one thing I really learned, and this is, I mean, just to my own position of being a director, producer, is respect. Like respect your collaborators, respect their time and their process, but also like find people that respect what they're coming into. So like Mitch never was like, you know, fuck this Margaret stuff, pitch it. I'm going anew. He was always very respectful of the dance with what was already there. And I think Cloud and I we were flexible on some stuff of just like, we're not losing everything, but we're also open to like better ideas. And so if Mitch presented something that was like, oh, well, this fits better, let's go with that. But fortunately, Mitch really seemed to love the challenge of working with what was there and making it, enhancing it, but like not in a way where this is incomplete, let me make it better. It was really just like he took to the spirit of the endeavor.
That's nice to hear. Thank you very much.
I mean, he was constantly being very racist while he did it.
It's like, oh, he was a great collaborator once he got past all the hate speech.
Yeah, and I mean, just like the rampant nudity. Like every Zoom call, I really expected to just see cock when I got on here today.
Like every time I uploaded something to the OneDrive, it was 4 gig, and it was 1 gig of music and 3 gig of nudes.
Oh my god.
This is like, it's just a bizarre fucking process. And like, you gotta play. I mean, McLeod and I, like, we were always just like, if we can have fun, like, let's have fun, because the ending of the movie is such a motherfucker that, you know, it's like, you know, this is gonna sound really weird, but Mrs. Doubtfire was a huge influence in like how I see storytelling, because it was the first time I noticed that if you make people laugh, you can fuck them up with emotions all like so much harder later.
That's such a great example.
Yeah. Like watching people just like bawl their eyes out at Mrs. Doubtfire in the theater, like, well, this is interesting. Making a note of this. And so, yeah, like, and I think I always say like we got really lucky with collaborators. And I think part of it, and I mean, Mitch, you can tell me if I'm full of shit. Please do if I am. Like, but I think people wanted to work on it because we created a pretty positive environment. You know, like we're definitely there to support you. And I also was just like, can you believe we're making a movie? Like, this is insane. Why would I be mean to anybody? You know, you're waking up at 6 a.m. for this? All right. You know, we're not paying real money, right? So yeah, like it's just kind of honoring and respecting like their time, their process. You know, it's weird to me when like especially directors are just like, I have it in my head and I need somebody to just execute what's in my head. There's no like breathing room in that. So it for us, it's always just like with me, it's like, here's the idea, but like, please make it better if you can.
that's not collaboration, is it? That is, I need somebody to do this thing for me because I don't have time to do it myself. That's not
delegation.
Like,
And I mean, like, I feel like I've like over the course of this conversation, I've talked a bit about the parts of this that were the most stressful, and even then, I wasn't like, this is awful. You know, like when I was working on when I was sitting working on it at 3 a.m. that day, I still wasn't like, well, fuck this. It was great. You know, like, and it's like, yeah, I don't give a fuck if I'm tired at my work the next day or anything like that. You know, it's like, oh, it's good. No, fuck that. Like, it's like, no, like, you know, like, I remember sitting and thinking, I just kind of like thought it was kind of an absurd situation, but at the same time, I was like, yeah, but I wouldn't swap it for any other absurd situation. Right. You know,
this is cool. I feel like both of us hit that moment of just like, why are you awake? Like we're like sending messages back and forth, just like, shouldn't you be asleep? And it's like, shouldn't you?
That was funny with the time difference. I was like, wait a minute, hang on, what time is it with you again? But yeah, I mean, like, I think that I don't know, Adam, I think you hit on something kind of important there. Like, I mean, I think that one of the reasons why this has been probably my favorite experience of the things that I've worked on was probably because, like, even when it was difficult, it was easy because there was no real kind of like ego. Nobody came into a conversation absolutely married to an idea. Like, I think that, like, you know, we were all kind of ready to refine or change or kill off ideas that we had and stuff like that to kind of get to the thing that worked well, like, or worked best for all three of us and stuff like that. And like, you don't get that all the time. And I think that like that's kind of important and validating and kind of part of the fun, I think.
We did like the first set of pickups. So, you know, we shoot the movie, I cut it together, and it's bad. The assembly cut was 1 hour and 50 minutes long, and it was bad. But the ending always worked. So I was like, all right, well, let's just get to the ending quicker. And at a certain point, it became clear, like, okay, this all works, but we need to reconceive the first act. And also the montage at the end, that was a addition in pickups, in the first set of pickups. And there was no plan for a second set of pickups. We're like, okay, we did it. But we had planned to convene in Delaware, which is where my mom lives. Like, let's just take a week. It'll be nice. We can swim in the pool. We can drink on the deck. But like, let's just take a week, be in the same place, and edit. And we got some notes. And I remember, like, I was home. I was in the kitchen, and I was just like, no, it fucking does this. Like, what are people not get? Oh, it doesn't do that right. Shit. Well, I think we need to do more pickups. And he's like, yeah, okay. And it was the music. It was him singing, and it was the dreams, and it was the music, or the yellow dress stuff that like we had to like really go back and pick up. And I mean, I'm sure there was a few other things that we ended up doing, but that was the entire process. Was just like, all right, we like this. It could be better. How do we make it better? Like, not even knowing the solution, just like, well, it's vaguely broken. Let's just make a plan, and we'll figure it out when we get there. That's so much of the process.
Yeah.
And that
was like you say, you know,
learn.
putting the film at the center and letting the film guide you rather than like, as you say, you know, sort of avoiding all of those just like concrete preconceived kind of ideas, and being I guess brave enough and having sort of a small enough ego, I guess, to be able to let that go, which is how you get to what you've got to. So
Yeah. I mean, when it started, I was just consumed with self-loathing, so there was no ego. And then as I started learning to trust my instincts, I also was like, well, you can't let this like preclude listening to others, because if we have learned anything so far, it's that we should be listening to others. So yeah, it's weird. I mean, it gets a lot of the movie. I'm in a much better place now. I'm the happiest I've ever been, and so much of it is the process of making this has been the process of learning to trust myself and learning that I have a place in the world and I have a function and I don't need to just be defined by insecurity. And it's fun to like talk to Mitch, and like we were kind of connecting on like like Sad Robot, and like we were connecting on some like depressive ideas, and also just be like, I'm so much better than I was 3 years ago. Like I can't even imagine. Like I'm glad you're meeting me now. Yeah, no, fucking collaboration is amazing, and it brings like the best things into your life.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
I see
other people are awesome until they're not.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are okay.
This ending brought to you by UKIP.
Can we go back to the piss jars?
Yes, always.
There's
UKIP
your
piss jars.
There's your pull quote. Yeah, nice.
That's the merchandising that won't surprise anybody. UKIP piss jars.
Yeah, there you go.
God.
Guys, I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is great.
This has been an absolute joy. Thank you.
Yeah, this was really fun.